J.C. Newman Cigar Studio in Boston, Massachusetts. Welcome to the Smokin Tabacco Show with your hosts, Matt Tobacco and Smokin Nicole.
And good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of the Smokin Tabacco Show. My name is Matt Tobacco from SmokinTabacco.com. I'm joined once again by my lovely wife, Smokin Nicole, who's here with me. We have an exciting show for you tonight. We have Alec Cuevas of Casa Cuevas Cigars joining us in just a moment. We're going to be lighting up the Sangre Nueva, which is his new cigar, which we'll talk more about. But with that, welcome to the show, guys. Good evening. Hello. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. If you're listening later on the podcast network. Also, shout out to J.C. Newman. We're in the J.C. Newman Cigar Studios. It is Bricktoberfest all October long. For the past 5 years, the month of October has been synonymous with Bricktoberfest for J.C. Newman Cigar Co. Each year, J.C. Newman launches a new Brick House branded beer stein, which consumers can get with a 7-cigar purchase at participating retail locations. This year, the stein is a 1-liter Das Boot and is decorated with the Brick House Vista and dated with Bricktoberfest 2022. So go ahead over to J.C. Newman Cigars or go to your local brick-and-mortar retailer who carries J.C. Newman, which most of them do. You can find the Brick House cigars today. Great cigars. Check them out. Also, tonight, we will be cutting and lighting our cigars with our Cigar Blondie accessories. Cutters, the fantastic super sharp cutter, lighter with its signature blade flame and its sleek design. Head over to cigarblondie.com today to check those out. So, Nicole, how's your week been?
It's been good. I missed the show last week. I had to work. Sorry about that. And this week, I feel like it's been a never-ending week, to be honest.
Oh, yeah?
If I'm being really honest. It's been a really draggy week. I'm tired today. I just took a nap before the show. Also gonna.
You know who naps before the show?
Who?
Coop.
Really?
Yeah. So you're getting into
I feel like
old man Coop territory with the afternoon nap.
Man, I mean, I just once I hit this decade, I'm tired all of the time. I'm probably over exaggerating, but I'm pretty tired.
I mean, you're 30. You're not. How old is Coop? 58? 56?
I feel like I'm as old as Coop. So.
Yeah. Because I know there's been times with, like, before Spare Notes or, like... Actually, no, because Spare Notes he usually does jukebox. But before, like, this show... Like, right now, I think he's napping. Because then he goes on at 10. And there's been times where I've tried to talk to him in between this show and his show. And he'll be like, sorry, I was napping. I'm getting ready for the show. I'm like, oh, okay. Or he was eating dinner and then he was napping, or vice versa. So...
I don't know how I feel about the nap, because now I'm more tired, to be honest.
Well, I mean, you have coffee. You tried.
I'm trying to wake up.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's just been a very long week at work, so yeah.
As always. It's
As
always long
always.
for you.
I know.
You got a lot going on. You got a lot of people you got to deal with.
I know. For those of you who don't know, I manage a spa, and so I manage 29 women, which can be difficult within itself. Especially, it tends to be dramatic, but then we also deal with other situations. So this week, and unfortunately, I cannot name names of the business and whatnot, but
you can't give any information away.
I can't give any information away. However, I had a situation where a gentleman who came in for a massage relieved himself on the table. So I had to deal with that fun today.
Nice.
And that happens more often than you think.
That's great. That's just...
So that's been my week. And obviously there's a lot of HR paperwork to fill out when that happens.
Who cleans up the mess?
So the massage therapist had to clean it up. Fill it up. He had to clean it up. It was there on the he like lifted up the sheet, and there it was.
That's one
and
hell of a
not
massage.
okay. Had to ban him, of course, and
So it wasn't a happy ending. The guy did it to himself.
he did it to himself. Yeah,
That's one hell of a massage.
He said, and he actually turned to the therapist and said it was the best massage he ever had. So
I'd say so. I would say so.
And then he found that. So
I would say so. It was probably like, oh, okay. It's not so much of a
yeah.
surprise now. Okay.
Yeah. So it's definitely weird. Especially when they feel super uncomfortable in the room, I have to do a little bit of bouncing. So if they, like the therapist, feel uncomfortable, I tell them, leave the room, come find me. And the next thing that person hears is me knocking on the door, telling them to put their clothes on. And I'm like, hey, it's the manager. Can you come out and have a chat with me? So it's very interesting.
This isn't
industry
that kind
to
of
be
place.
in. Yeah, this is not that kind of place, because we are in a high-end place, and the amount of people that try to pull that is kind of wild. So, but maybe they think money talks. I don't know.
I think that there's a lot more of those places around than people realize. And
the
so,
hole in the wall places.
yeah, and I think that you know, some people just have this expectation, like, oh, hey, well, you know, let's just
I think they try it
let's
to
just
see if they
try.
can get away with
And
it.
yeah, I think they think that some
And
people are just like, nah, all right, I'll do it. Like it's part of the job, and it's like not everybody does that.
no, and the prices we're charging, that is not. And we're in a very, well-known high-end sort of establishment, so it just baffles me that, yeah, then that can happen. So anyway,
You know, sometimes
but
that's some people's only way of getting any kind of intimacy in life. They just have
I
to
know.
they have to go to a massage place and
I
let it happen.
know, but it's illegal. So, there's that. Anyway,
I think
so that's been my week, and it's obviously extra stressful when stuff like that happens. So
I thought this was the So you're in the no.
I don't know.
This
I
is the
don't know,
broken
okay.
chair because the back thing is hanging off.
I know we have to get new chairs for the studio. But anyway, we should welcome our guest on.
We should. This chair is just throwing me for a loop here. All right, without further ado, we're going to bring him on. Alec Cuevas from Casa Cuevas Cigars joins us. He's been on the show before, which I think was about 2 years ago now. So he's making his return finally, and he's got something new to share with us. And that's, as I said before, the Sangre Nueva. That is, it translates to new blood, if I remember correctly, right, Alec?
Yes, sir. Thank you guys so much for having me on.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's great to have you on. You and your dad were on before.
I think it was St. Patrick's Day because you guys were having a party in your backyard.
It
If
might
I
have
remember
been.
that correctly.
Yeah.
I think that was
Well,
the
you have
day.
impeccable memory. Yeah, that was.
Well,
a
I
St.
just
Patty's
remember
party.
you guys were partying, and it was green.
It was one of those things that me and my father, obviously, we had no clue was happening. My mom orchestrated the whole thing. So next thing you know, people were just coming over with all sorts of foods, all sorts of beverages and whatnot. So it became a little bit hectic, and it was unbeknownst to me and my father. So go figure. But yeah, that's exactly what it was. It was a little St. Patty's
Yeah.
party.
Yep. So
It's a great time. It's a good excuse to drink. It's a good excuse to let loose, just hang out.
I'm half Irish. That's my blood's holiday.
Yeah.
Oh, right on.
Absolutely. Nicole, she, St. Patrick's Day is a special day in this house. I'll tell you. I mean, the whiskey comes out, and it gets wild. But that's what happens. And then of course we have the Italian side. Amazing stuff comes out of that kitchen. So it balances itself out. It's a nice mixture. But no, we're here today to talk about you. Last time you guys were on, I think it was before PCA 2021, which we didn't see you guys at. We saw you at PCA. We saw you at PCA this year. We saw you at TPE this year. At PCA, you guys debuted this cigar, the Sangre Nueva, which is your new cigar. This is a cigar that you worked on personally. Tell us a little bit about this cigar. What what is it? What was the inspiration behind it? Kind of the whole story on it.
So the works in the relation to the cigar is, and you'll hear me say this time and time again, very much a tribute to my family, specifically my father and my grandfather for all that they've taught me. But it's also a cigar that I pay tribute in relation to this industry. The reason I say that is because I'm a very, very young face. And despite me being so young, I've never once felt extremely intimidated by this industry or in general, just smoking a cigar. And if anything else, this industry has been very welcoming. And it's something that I've enjoyed for the past 5 years in terms of having this brand. So Sangre Nueva is a very, very special project to which I was also then promoted as the director of brand development going forward. So I will have more cigars coming out further on beyond just this project. However, it was my first footprint that legitimately solidified my placement within this industry and what it means to me.
Yeah, it's got to be special. We've seen this time and time again. A lot of the manufacturers are family-owned businesses, right? I mean, and there's, and you know who all of your peers are in the industry. I mean, pick a family. You got the Perdomo family, the Fuente family,
Yeah.
Padron family, the Plasencia family, the Garcia family. I mean, and there's a lot of, right now, one of the things that I noticed at PCA this year actually was a lot of you guys, the thirds and even fourth generation family members who are part of the industry, part of their family business, or even becoming cigar makers themselves, and working on blending and working on rolling and all this other stuff down in the factory. Not just hi, my family has this brand and I'm working here and that's great, but like no, you guys are working with tobacco. Lito Gomez Jr. at La Flor Dominicana.
Yeah.
He worked on the Soli that's coming out in any time now in the next couple of weeks. He's around your age. He's part of that generation. You see, Carlito's got Carlos III, kind of bringing him into the mix now. I'm pretty sure George Padron's kids are somewhat involved in the business too, if I remember correctly.
I think
So a lot of you guys are all in this together, and you're the wave of the next generation that has now come into the scene here, and now here you are with your cigar that you have. So it's nice. It's nice to me. I think it's a nice presence to see fresh, younger faces. As a new generation and as a younger member of, not just as a younger cigar smoker, but obviously someone who's a manufacturer and part of the industry, do you see, from your point of view, do you see a lot more younger people? When I say younger, I say, let's say 32 and under, obviously above the age of 21, that are getting more and more into cigars?
Yes, very much so. Which is something that I've always found to be, well, first off, exhilarating, but also fascinating as well. A big portion of, I guess you can call it essentially a side goal of mine, is personally getting more of the younger folk away from all the other things you could potentially smoke at this day and age and gravitating more towards cigars. Because I believe that there's a stigma around cigars that it's for the more experienced gentlemen, it's for celebratory purposes. And while that is necessarily true, it's also a very much untapped market, similar to craft beer, when it comes to younger individuals. So as I've been doing this, more and more in relation towards different events and whatnot, I have seen more younger individuals gravitating towards cigars and genuinely going for things that are boutique or relatively new that they've never picked up on. Which is why I think this PCA was tremendous, because there are a lot of younger faces now coming out with their own proper cigars. And that is a great way to kind of introduce it towards that younger market in particular, that 32 and under range. Eligible still to smoke, mind you, not anything below 21.
Right.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
What do you think the key is to bringing in that demographic of smokers into the industry that maybe previously in other generations that age bracket didn't really exist? Do you think that it's the technology and the social media and stuff that kind of gets in between the influencing of them, or do you think it's just something that's the industry itself is growing and now it's just caught on with the younger generation? I mean, what is it from your point of view?
I feel as if this industry has been, better said, very well established and still is in relation towards the experienced smokers and those that are willing to pick up new things. For the younger folk, I agree with you completely, Matt. I really do believe a lot of it is based around social media. So things similar to this, for example, where they see somebody as young as myself talking about the cigar, actually smoking a cigar with you guys. It's something that they get to chime in on, get more interesting notes off in relation towards information and just an educational standpoint. And that kind of gets their gears going. And next thing you know, they want to try a cigar or they want to experience the culture aspect of it. Social media has a huge part to play these days in relation to that sort of stuff.
Yeah, and especially, we've seen it in the last couple of years, even more so with, when the pandemic began, everything was online because there was just no other way. Which we've always been kind of saying, which it was always been good for the industry, right? It was something that the industry kind of really lacked. And then when it was like, all right, you have no choice but to do like everything you can online, it kind of forced the cigar industry to like embrace that whole medium, so to speak, and now it's definitely stayed with us, and it's been great. So, and you guys have a great. I just want to give a quick shout out because I have to. A shout out to Gabriel. He takes care of all your social media and all your other stuff like that. He works with a couple other brands too, but I know he works really close with you guys, and he's great. He's phenomenal. So just a shout out to him for always being such a great help to us and for a great help to you guys as well. Because, I mean, you guys are busy down there making cigars. You can't be all over this thing all the time.
Very true. And yeah, he's extremely good at what he does. That's something that we do not take for granted in the slightest. And it's something that we'll talk about very frequently on a very bi-weekly basis. He'll call me and we'll just talk numbers in relation towards social media, certain views in relation to videos or whether photos work. So truth be told, if it wasn't for Gabe's knowledge in relation towards how the actual analytical stats work for that sort of stuff, we would not have the, I guess, the visual output that we currently carry as of the moment.
Yeah, I've had some great conversations with him over the last couple of years, working with him and getting to know him better. And, we've hung out a few times down down at Empire, which I know you know really well.
Yeah.
You know, which he handles all their stuff too. So, you know, just great conversations with him. The stuff that he knows and he's been able to share with me and his past experiences. He's a phenomenal guy. So I had to give him a shout out. He helped me with this show today and everything that it took to prepare the show. So I just wanted to give him a quick shout out. This size that I'm smoking, are you smoking the Sangre Nueva?
As of right now, yes, I'm smoking the Robusto size currently.
So you're smoking the Robusto. We're smoking the Double Perfecto. Now this size, was this at PCA? I don't remember.
Yes, it was. In relation to samples, and sadly, of the bunch, about 2 bundles worth of that one were just dried out and cracked. So we were very much embarrassed to give those puppies out, so to speak.
I don't blame you, and it's tough in Vegas.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, they were there at PCA. Yes, sir.
Now, I know that the cigar is out now. When did these officially ship?
Those officially shipped actually on my birthday, September 9th, is when they officially hit our shelves and we were able to start distributing. So a good amount of time from when PCA began, so to speak.
And I remember the last time you were on here, you and your dad was on with you, and you guys, I think we were smoking the Flacos, the Lonsdales.
Yep.
And
the Lanceros.
Oh, the Lanceros. And I remember right around that time was you guys were telling us a story of the break-in that you guys had in the warehouse, and a lot of the cigars were stolen. I just remembered like that. That's what we talked about last time. And it's funny how you guys leaned into that too. And I remember you guys had it on the band too with the. If I remember correctly, you guys had like hammers or something like on the band or something, or like something. That was
the sledgehammer, the Montoya.
Yeah, the sledgehammer. Yeah. That was cool. I like how you guys like you leaned into that. Like it's kind of a sucky situation, but it's like, hey, well, you know, we have a story to tell now. So.
Oh yeah, definitely. In fact, to give a little bit of a quick anecdote, it almost happened again. As of about a month ago. Oh yeah. We got a quick little scare. My father was up in Nashville with my mother, just visiting accounts and whatnot. And it was about 10 o'clock at night. I was sitting outside, go figure, smoking a cigar. And I got the notification on my phone, quickly rushed over to the office. And thankfully, everything was intact, but the alarm went off twice. So we're much more prepared now than we were back in the day, God knows. But then, it was still a little bit of a scare. And thankfully, nothing came of it. I think me arriving there, especially the cops were right around the corner. They also swung by and maybe that helped alleviate what could have happened, but yeah, I believe there was a secondary attempt, so to speak.
Well, I mean, you can never be too careful, and of course, these things happen. I think Christian Aroa had that happen to him around the same time yours happened too. Which also, I think he also was distributing for Petoro at the time, so some of those cigars were stolen. So it's crazy, you know. You hear these stories, and then. You know, recently you had the fire at William Ventura, which most people I think have heard about now. I mean, that's devastating too. So, and that's arguably, I mean, that's worse. I mean, they lost their entire infrastructure. I mean, it's really hard to come back from that too. I mean, that's got to be a fear for everybody with a factory, right? It's just something like that happens, and you can never be too careful, but at the same time, you also, when it happens, you never see it coming too. So.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
It's very much expecting the unexpected, and once the unexpected arrives, it's then how do you tackle that going forward, right? So I can't even imagine. I remember hearing that and just thinking, holy cow. I mean, that's, you know, God bless him, truth be told.
Yeah, there's some cigar lines that shortly after were announced from like Caldwell and Bellotto that make cigars in that factory. They were just discontinued because, you know, they can't. So that's very unfortunate. So yeah, you always hear these stories of these things that happen in the industry. Fires, you know, curing barns catch fire and factories burn down, warehouses get broken into, or your stuff just gets damaged in transit going through customs. I remember one of the conversations we had was there was some cigars we had that had holes in them, and you told us the story of how we've been getting a lot of, you know, searches, you know, through customs, and they just drill right through the boxes and then go, okay, there's nothing here, and they still send the product along. Well, now it's trash to you. So how often does that happen where you get in damaged inventory like that?
You would be very surprised, folks. In relation to that, it hasn't been happening as much lately. thankfully, better said. But it still does occur from time to time. You'll see the green packaging tape all over one of your boxes. We're supposed to get a new shipment in of Sangre Nueva, as a matter of fact, tomorrow, if not next week. So I'll go on ahead, and if anything else, I'll send you some photos. When that does happen, our main issue last time around was it's simple to go on ahead, take off the actual wrapping of the box, open it up, and then maybe take one cigar from the batch just to see if it carries anything and then move forward. At this day and age, there's a technology for that in relation towards if there's some narcotics to be found, you'll find them. Going through and bashing the boxes in, drilling a million holes into the box, I mean, those are things that personally were unethical, in my opinion, and didn't make much sense. If you wanted to, or if you had the technology, better said, to look into that sort of stuff, then why the heck you go through all this process and destroy product that we put money down for, a product that did not come cheap? As chip costs, there's all sorts of things you need to take into account when they fly into the States. And it's almost as if you can't really do anything about it, considering it's customs. The most you can do is complain about it and get put on their bad list. And now they're doing it a plethora of times more so than they're already doing it. The most recent drilling out of the boxes, I'd say, was last week, to which we brought in a bunch of products that we needed. We genuinely did need. And it's a good thing that we're running out, but it's that bittersweet thing. And only 3 of the boxes were damaged, thank God. But it varies very much so, Matt.
Yeah, you brought up a good point too. You're like, we as manufacturers, you put money down on this inventory, to make it, ship it, get it in, to turn around and make a profit on it. I mean, it's the basics of business, but you're right. You put money down on it, so I mean, it's disappointing when you get inventory in, and you have a loss off of something that's what I would say is kind of careless. Yeah, if there's other options, it's carelessness of like, well, let's just do this and move on. It's like, well, I just, not because of anything else other than just customs decided to drill through my product. Now you have a loss depending on how much your product was damaged. And you guys probably already have other logistical issues that you deal with things getting damaged or lost along the way, or stuff that gets damaged once it gets out of the container, or before it goes in the container, or if it's in the factory, and then you got to take that into consideration. It's like, it's avoidable, right? It's one of those things that's so avoidable that it's disappointing when you see it happen, because it's like, you guys, I'm sure, have enough other issues that you have to worry about logistically, especially in a day and age where, I mean, you need inventory. And inventory, I mean, even for a brand your size, I mean, you guys are selling a lot of cigars, and you run low on inventory, and then you're waiting on this next batch, and you have a certain amount that you anticipate, that lands on the other side that you can take and then distribute, and then there's a percentage that, oh, no, that's gone. So when we had maybe 40 boxes to send to an account, well, you're only getting 30 now, or 28, because we had so many cases destroyed or damaged or lost or whatever, which in itself is frustrating. The whole distribution. I can't remember. Are you guys self-distributing, or do you work with someone else for distribution?
We self-distribute. So that quite literally happens right here in Miami. We're about 15 minutes away from the office. The majority of what comes out, if it's not international, comes out specifically from our office space. Yes, sir.
So who primarily oversees most of the distribution aspect? Does your dad kind of handle that, or?
Well, we both do to a degree. I like to take manual inventory whenever I can, and my father's the one to then take that inventory in relation towards not having product or it running dangerously low. To which then he'll write up the email, send it to my grandfather. My grandfather will send us the transcript of what's going to be sent over to us. And then, lo and behold, we just wait, and it becomes a waiting game. But that becomes both of us, so to speak. I tend to handle a lot of the orders in relation towards typing them up, actually creating them and so forth, and sending the emails out to our clients. Whereas my father is very big on keeping everything intact and keeping everything organized in our office space. So it's very much a dual sort of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, and I know I'm talking to, like John Carney is a friend of mine, and from La Flor Dominicana, and talking to him about the way that they do things and stuff like that. And I remember seeing it firsthand, like going down to his office down in Miami, and they're in Coral Gables actually, I think, and and like listening to him like talk to answer phone calls and questions on product, like for like 2 days straight. I remember at one point I just looked down and I was like, dude, I have a whole new respect just for what you do. Not that I didn't before, but like now that I've just seen it, he's like, dude, you have no idea what I deal with. Like
It becomes tedious.
it's the little things though, right? It's not like so and so needs to place an order. They write up the order, they send it out, done. That's easy. It's the little things. It's the people who call and they're looking for stuff that they already said they didn't have, or something gets lost and someone's expecting a shipment. It's like, well, it went out this morning. And he's like, it's all day. So, no, it is. The distribution part of it is, you have cigar making, the tobacco growing, which is the art of itself, right? That's a whole science by itself. Then you have to sell the cigars. You got to get them to your retailers. You got to place the orders. That's the other part of it too. And I think, we're talking to other manufacturers who have kind of always made cigars or sold tobacco just to other brands, never really doing brands themselves. But then, look at like Plasencia and even the Venturas, that started making their own product lines. And I remember when those guys come on the show, it's like, learning that curve of taking the product, which it was always for us about making the product and selling it to someone else, or just making, something that was ordered. Now it's like we have our own thing. We have to market it. We have to distribute it. And do all that part of ourselves, and it's a whole new thing that I know a lot of people say it takes a lot of time to figure out when you haven't been doing that part of the business. So it is it's very involved. We do have a question from the chat here from Raphael. Being a family that's in the industry since 1881, how do you feel about the actual cigar makers market? Should the industry go back to cigar making art?
Interesting. In relation towards cigar making art, although frankly I would like to see more of it in this day and age, I do feel as if there is a lack of beautiful creation when it comes to the arts, especially considering cigar making is an art form. I do find there to be a hefty lack of that. However, that also is incorporated in the box, in the packaging, that sort of thing too, and in the band itself, depending on the brand maker, right, or the manufacturer for this example as well. And how do I feel about the actual cigar makers market? I think in this day and age, it's fairly solid. And I say that because, and you know this because we've mentioned this before on the show, I really do feel as if we're living in this mini cigar boom. You're going to find a lot of great product out there, a lot of, for lack of a better term, boutique product that is really amping up the game. A lot of the big boys that are much more established are also putting on their A game as well. So you have this diversity to be had, and you can go for the either complex yet cost-effective boutique cigar or the more luxurious one that's much more well-known, and both will smoke amazingly. It just becomes a matter of preference at that point. So I think the cigar making market as of right now is solid. It's doing really well.
Do you think there's too many brands on the market today, and being too many cigars on the market from the consumer's perspective, right? Are there too many choices out there for consumers, or do you think that it's great to have the amount of diversity and options that are out there?
I like the fact that there's a plethora of brands to choose from. In relation towards, I just realized I said brands, pardon me. But when it comes to being a consumer, having that availability or that choice really is amazing. There's a lot of great stuff out there you can find. Most of the cigar at this point in relation towards the blending process, we say this all the time in relation towards my family, cigars don't grow on the moon. So what you're smoking now is a reinvention of the wheel. Where I do have my quarrels are the gents that, let's say, have the factory similar towards ourselves, right? That just mass produce cigars, and next thing you know, you have a very oversaturated market. It doesn't allow these cigars themselves to stand on their own. At the very least, give it within a year. I mean, it's something that we tend to do. We'll launch a cigar quite literally once a year, even though we have the factory. We're not the biggest fan of going on ahead and pumping out, let's say, 6 different new lines and just oversaturating everything. So now you look at us, we're 50 lines deep, and you don't really know where to begin. None of the cigars have caught the legs that they rightfully deserve at that moment. Pardon me if you hear the plane.
It's really not bad. It's not as bad.
Okay,
no.
Perfect. So that's a very interesting question. To come to a conclusion, I really do believe that it's good in terms of a consumer standpoint to have all the brands available to them, because it gives them a lot of choice, and that's very important.
Yeah, and it's funny, you even mentioned like the big boys too, right? I mean, Dan Thompson from Micallef is here. Micallef is a smaller but a growing steadily company in brand. They've made a lot of changes. They've been doing a lot of other things. They've had great social outreach with their ambassador program and social media and all this. Juan Lopez chimed in here from Gurkha. Gurkha's a big company. They've been around a while. Most people know the name. It's funny. We have seen even the big manufacturers make a lot of changes and change the way they market and do certain things to not. I think mostly. I don't want to say stay relevant, but at the same time, that's kind of what it is. Not that they really have a struggle with that. I think with some of those brands that have maybe been around for a while, I mean, even your brand, I mean, Casa Cuevas is, said before, it's been around since 1881. I think it's not so much staying relevant in general. It's as we talked about that new generation, it's like that new generation comes up, making sure that brand gets carried down to a new demographic as it continues to age and doesn't just stick with a generation that slowly dies off, and then all of a sudden you have this consumer base that just drops off because it never really expanded down to the younger generation. So I think that's a huge part of what they're doing. And then the smaller brands are just basically trying to get themselves out there as a whole. I think that for a lot of the smaller brands that are growing right now, and correct me if I'm wrong or if maybe you guys see this differently, I think that, as you talked about this like little boom that's happening, for brands that are starting to lay their bricks down and really grow and swing into a big growth, on that rise to the top, so to speak, it's a great time for that because there's so many more smokers now than there were when a lot of these other brands were trying to grow. And I feel like, do you feel like maybe it'll be easier for brands to grow even quicker? Sorry. Grow even quicker right now versus maybe the last boom that happened, 25, 30 years ago?
You know what? That's actually and this is the first time I've been asked that. It's an interesting question, and the reason I say that is because although yes, I agree with you wholeheartedly, there are a lot more cigar smokers I think coming into the fray now than ever before. I still believe, and we're very much fond of saying that this is a marathon, not a sprint. Just because there are much more cigar smokers and there might be more demand doesn't mean that the supply being pumped out is fitting their palate. It really does depend on the smoker, how experienced, or better said, how curious they are to pick up something new and add that towards their repertoire. But this, once again, is a great time to be a cigar smoker. If you are a boutique brand coming into the fray of things, you're definitely going to find yourself some sort of market. So long as you have the capital to sustain and a certain overhead where you can do that distribution, you are at the very least are going to go on ahead and find some sort of basis where your footprint will be left in a certain territory.
Yeah, I mean, watching a lot of these brands emerge in the last couple of years alone. I mean, last week we had Brandon from Apostate Cigars on. That's a new brand. They made their show debut this year with some new cigars. They have the Feathered Serpent, which is awesome. That's a candela that they make that is sold out. You can't get it, according to Brandon. They're getting more, but they're sold out right now. So when they get back in stock, check those out. But no, I mean, you're seeing a lot of these brands coming out. I feel like there's talking with some of these like really small brands that are just kind of coming out right now. Most of the time it's a lot younger people. I feel like there's a sense of kind of going along with what we talked about before with the access to the information or the access just to, the media stuff that's online. I feel like there's a lot of people out there who are finding it, not that it is, but I think there's people who have less fear of starting a brand because they're able to get so much information now just by watching shows like this or just reading articles online and doing things in their shops and stuff, that people are feeling more confident because they're getting more information than I think they used to get. And I'm talking about the average consumer who, then turns and goes, I want to start a brand myself. I want to start a cigar. I want to come out with something, even if it's something really small. I feel like there's more of a what am I looking for? There's more of an influence on starting a brand now as well than there was before. I think before it was like starting a brand seemed like, oh, you got to know someone. Now, I mean, you're seeing regular people start brands now who don't have any family in the business or don't, they don't grow tobacco. They don't know nothing about tobacco, but they'll go down, they learn, they work with someone, they find a factory they like to kind of mentor them and do this. And they're coming out with cigars. And it's crazy to see. There's so much more going on too. We had another question in here. I don't know. There it is. Right here. Raphael asks you again, what would you say Sangre Nueva, your blend, has to offer to the cigar smoker?
So this is something viably saying, if you have smoked Casa Cuevas before, we tend to say this a good amount, but this cigar really is the ringer for it. It is something completely different from our lineup. The secret's found within the filler. That being said, the cigar brings a lot of complexity, and it's something that uses a specific type of tobacco that people genuinely adore or people really are repulsed by. And I wanted to find that nice medium in between. So it's out now. So I will go on ahead and say what it is, unless you want me to hold back, Matt.
No, go right
No,
ahead.
yeah,
Let's do it.
please.
Right on. So it was our first time ever using Cameroon. It's Ecuadorian Cameroon in terms of the wrapper. The binder on the inside is that Corojo binder from Honduras, which goes back to our second latest project, so to speak, the Patrimonio of as of last year that was launched, which was our first time ever using Corojo. And the kicker, and towards what makes Sangre Nueva, is the tiniest sliver of Kentucky fire cured tobacco. Now, that being said, it's something that I know for a fact personally. For example, I'm not the biggest fan of it. I believe it to be very potent and extremely overwhelming. It amounts towards a cigar, in my personal opinion, to have very much one note all the way through. And although it's constant and relatively consistent, I'd like to shoot for something with a little more oomph that has a nice transition to it that you can pick up more notes from. Henceforth, Sangre Nueva really only carries a sliver, so much so there's not even a percentage to be had in regards to it. What this does is it brings you that sensation of roasted almonds on the initial light, and that's why I always say that at the very least give it a cold draw, because maybe you'll pick up on it if you have smoked a Kentucky Fried Cured before. But once you light it, especially in that Vitola you guys are smoking right now, the Double Perfecto, you get to the shoulder and the rest of the flavors open up on you. So now you're no longer tasting just straight Kentucky Fire Cured. You're tasting a lot more of what the cigar has to offer. I'd say this is the most full flavored that we've carried in terms of our line currently. And I believe it will be still, even though we have future projects in the works. So that's really what separates Sangre Nueva from something else, is the inclusion of that Kentucky Fire Cured, something that I know a lot of people are miffed about using, considering it's very overwhelming at times, depending on how you use it.
Sure, absolutely. I mean, it's a very distinct flavor profile, and I think you kind of hit it. You know, if you're not used to it, or if you don't like it, even a small amount can really throw you off or throw off your taste. Or, you know, there's some other cigars out there, obviously, that use a little bit of Kentucky Fire Cured in the blend. You know, to change the dynamic of it. I like how you said like it's a sliver. It's not even a percentage. It's just like a little bit in there, just for like a little bit of seasoning. It's not even like it's like half the filler, or it's like a quarter of the filler. It's like one of three things. It's just like a little bit of extra salt on top, right?
Well, I would have never picked up on it, but now that you've said it, it enhances the depth of flavor, right? So it gives it just more.
It's funny you bring that up, Nicole, because that's like one of those things where, and we're always afraid of that, which is why I wanted this to be very much an educational standpoint when it comes to the smoke, was a notion that I gave it almost as a homework assignment, especially at other events, to which I'd hand it off and I'd be like, I'm not going to tell you what's inside the filler. There is something peculiar and an American that's found inside the filler that changes the blend significantly. So, truth be told, from what it used to be in the initial blending process, give it a go. Maybe you'll pick up on it. And if you don't, I'll tell you the secret after the fact. I want to say during that quote unquote homework assignments, 4 people got it off the bat out of the hundreds I've handed the cigar to, which is very peculiar. It goes to show you those individuals that genuinely love the stuff. And there's some individuals that really didn't like it, but could taste it enough to know that, oh my gosh, I know what this is. I've had a bad experience with this, but the cigar is very complex in the sense where it brings a lot of nuance, and I don't just taste Kentucky Fire Cured. I love it. I've been hearing nothing but good accolades in relation to that stuff. But that fear factor is mentioning it and now having that being rotating in your head, like, oh, am I supposed to taste it? Next thing you know, you're tasting it, like that sort of thing. It very much so has that tiniest sliver. Like, the truth be told, it's not necessarily, we're not saying it just so you can like taste it. It's very much the tiniest sliver. So much so that for the rollers in particular, how they work with cigars is we'll give them certain fillers that they bunch up and they'll start loading up the cigar. That being said, there's going to be holes inside the cigar, so they'll go on ahead and they'll fill that in with the tobacco of their choosing based off the filler. With the Kentucky Fried Cured, it's so potent that we quite literally only give them that little strip, and that's all they have to play with. If that changed in the slightest, the cigar would not be what it is. Every cigar would be inconsistent. So we have to be super specific in relation towards how or what we're giving to our rollers.
Where did you so during the blending process when you're coming up with this blend, and you mentioned before you're not a fan of it at all, but where did that idea come from? Like, you know what? Well, let's try this.
So initially, this took about 14 blends to make. It took us 8 months. That being said, 1 through 4, number 3 really stood out to me, and number 3 is the one that they all carried Ecuadorian Cameroon, but number 3 carried that Corojo binder. So the aroma already from the foot, if you were to so much as smell it without even lighting it up, you could tell that it was going to be different based off its nuance. And I kept on gravitating back towards number 3 as my comparison. So we'd come out with another 4, and then I'd find myself going back to number 3, and so forth. It got to a point where I didn't know what else it really needed. And in relation towards my palate, I'm very much all over the place. I am not picky when it comes to cigars, although I'm a relatively picky individual, interestingly enough. And I sat down with my grandfather and told him I really didn't know where to go with this, especially considering at that point in time we were 7 months deep into the project. And I thought that was way too long, at the very least, to start this blending process. And my grandfather pulled me back, and pardon me if I do get a little sentimental here, that my great grandfather had an amazing palate. He was the type of guy that he could hold a tobacco leaf, and I mentioned this before to you guys, to the moonlight and quite literally tell you what season it was planted. He just had that general knowledge and that infatuation and passion for cigars.
Right.
My grandfather doesn't speak of the past very often. It's something that for him is a very soft touched note. So to get him to talk about that was a huge deal already. And that being said, after he mentioned the story, he told me that my father, albeit a tremendous palate, doesn't have a palate like I do, considering how many cigars that I've smoked, especially working on the retail side of things, what I can genuinely pick up in terms of notes. It's something that I've been essentially the right-hand man to my grandfather from the Mandaria onward. So for the Patrimonio, for the Reserva series, and now with Sangre Nueva being my own blend. When he told me that, beyond tearing up and crying, because that meant the world to me, he very much is one of my biggest idols. I asked him what we had that was experimental, what we had in relation towards tobacco that he didn't even conceive, or better said, he didn't put down on that sheet of paper that I could play with. And he gave me another listing. He brought me the actual tobacco in question. And I remember smelling the Kentucky Fried Green. I was like, you know what? Why not? These next 4 blends, let's just add the different experimental tobacco to it in terms of the filler and see how it works. Then blend number 10 and 11 came out. Blend number 11 carried 5% Kentucky Fried Cured. That's all you could taste. My mom is a sucker for that Kentucky Fried Cured. She loves that barbecue sensation, that roasted sensation. So for her, number 11 was winner, winner, chicken dinner. And I remember her telling me, "You've hit a home run with this. You hit a home run with this." And personally, for me, considering my bias, I guess in a way towards Kentucky Fried Cured, I was like, I don't want this. But smoking number 10, and number 10 came out, the first one, the fresh one in that double perfecto. Once I was able to taste it and everything else, and it got to the shoulder, the flavors that came in, I fell in love with it. I genuinely fell in love with it. Yeah, it's one of those things where, truth be told here, even if you're not the biggest fan of the tobacco, how you reinvent the wheel makes all the difference in the world when it comes to the blending process. And that's how we stuck with Sangre Nueva. And Sangre Nueva ended up becoming number 10. Had it not been for that little moment of asking for the experimental tobacco that we've had left over, I don't think this blend would be what it was, or what it is, better said.
It's always interesting to hear about what goes on in the blending process, right? Because there's so many different test blends that get made, and there's different percentages of different tobaccos that come in and out. And like we were talking to Steve Soccer a few weeks ago, and I mean, you want to talk about test blends? I mean,
He gets up into the 40s, right? 40s,
Oh, yeah.
50s.
I mean, holy shit! I mean, that's a guy who
He's not
loves
making smoke.
he loves making test blends. I'll tell you that. I mean, he enjoys it. But no, I mean, it's a process, and I've talked to a few other people who are in a similar position that you were in with your cigar, blending a cigar, and them saying like, yeah, like I went in and I told my dad I wanted to do this, and then it was like, all right, well, you're gonna sit down, you're gonna try, every leaf we have, and then go from there, and it's a process, and you have to get it to what you like, and you have to just kind of whittle it down, I guess, so to speak, in terms of when you find the tobaccos you want to use, then you have to kind of whittle it down to how much of what and where you want to put it in the blend, and then before you actually go, okay, this is what I want, and now we got to make it. That's a process that could take months. Correct me if I'm wrong. That just to
You're very right.
just to figure that out before you can even do anything else with the blend, just figure out what the blend's going to be and how to make it work, which is, the art in itself, right? And for you to be able to work with your dad and your grandfather on that stuff is huge. Having that resource there is definitely a huge advantage.
I have not taken it for granted in the slightest. In fact, that you're completely right. I like to compare it towards, in a way, writing an essay. It's very easy to go on ahead and write the body once you have the prompt, but starting it is always the most difficult part, at least in my personal opinion. Cigars are very similar in that regard. Just because you have this basis and yet the blend itself hasn't been necessarily created, you have ample tobacco to play with. So now it's a matter of, where do you go with this? Do you want something that's much more in strength? Do you want something with darker tones in terms of notes? Do you want something that's much more creamy and just adds a lot of complexity? What are you shooting for? The project initially was going to be something that I wanted full-bodied, to which I think we settled on a medium to medium plus, but it's very much full in flavor.
Yeah, I mean, I can taste it slightly myself, the Kentucky Fire Cured in the cigar. For me, though, it's a taste of it. You can taste it mixed in with other things. It doesn't stand out by itself. It doesn't overpower. It doesn't, like you were saying before, it's not like it's like, oh, there it is, and it's ruined the rest of the taste because it took control of the flavor, right? It's there, but it's there in a way where you do taste it mixed with the other tobaccos, mixed together, blended together. It's not a single note. You pick it up on the smoke and the aroma too, just ever so lightly, like on the end. It's there. It's like a little reminder, like there it is right there. And it's nice. It has a nice aroma to it. It has a nice flavor to it. I like the way it's balanced. Especially working with Cameroon too. I mean, Cameroon is also a tobacco leaf that can be tricky to work with as well. So you have that aspect to it too. So I mean, this is a pretty unique and particular little blend you have here, and it works pretty well. I want to circle back to it, but I want to hit our news segment first. Our news is once again brought to you by Micallef Cigars. If you head over to micallefcigars.com today, you can sign up to become an official Micallef ambassador. And while you're at it, head over to Facebook and join the Micallef ambassador group. It's always a great time smoking Micallef cigars. We have a couple of things that are on the news docket this week in terms of products that have gone out or going to be available. First thing is from United Cigar, the Byron 19th century, the 19th century Byron Epique Poema 30-count humidor is scheduled to begin shipping the first week of November, debuting at the 2022 PCA trade show in Las Vegas. The 19th century Byron Epique Poemas humidor ships with 30 cigars inside a carton of 50 cigars to refill. Aged for 4 years post-roll, the Epique Poemas cigars are part of the 19th century blend by Nelson Afonso of Select Tobacco and feature a dark, oily Ecuadorian wrapper. Those will be going out to your local United, sorry, I can't even get this whole thing out. Your local United retailers, and that actually has a price point on it, an MSRP of $2,960. You have the 30-count humidor, but 80 cigars total. So quite a little pricey, but I'll tell you, I've had those cigars. They're fantastic. So if you can pony it up, that's a great set. We've seen it. I believe it's on our PCA coverage for United, or Selected rather, on the Selected Tobacco page on smokintobacco.com. You can see photos of it. It's all there. The news story will be up later this evening. The other thing that was worth mentioning is Drew Estate's Liga Privada Unico Series UF4 returns exclusively once again for Casa de Montecristo in Chicago. Since 2010, Casa de Montecristo in Countryside, Illinois has been the exclusive home for Drew Estate's annual limited edition Liga Privada Unico Series UF4 at 6x52 Toro. As in previous years, the 2022 UF4 will debut during Casa de Montecristo's annual Halloween costume party, which the store will host on October 27th. So check those out. I believe also they had a couple of them in the D25 set.
They did, yes.
I think there was some UF4s in there as well.
Yep.
Also, for the pancetta smokers, the pancetta, Liga Privada Unico pancetta, which is also going to be coming out soon. Wooden Indian tobacco, or Wooden Indian cigars in Pennsylvania. That one is also coming out. So there's some couple of the more limited Ligas that come out this time of year. They are now going back out, so go ahead and check those out if you're a Liga Privada fan, and as well as those the Byron Epique Poemas are going out as well. Those are fantastic cigars. Alec, you're back. Thank you for sticking with us as we get through our news for the week. I know it's a lot there that we get through, but
Well, I like to hear about it as well. I mean, I'm very interested. So
there's
it's
always
awesome.
stuff coming out. Yeah, there's always stuff coming out, and it's a lot, and this is why I said to you before, like, do you find that there's just too many cigars out there? Look, there's a lot of great cigars out there, but for me, it's like, I joke with Coop and some of the other guys about this a lot, like Mitchell and everyone, like, and even with Nicole, like, there's so many things that people ask you, like, oh, did you have so-and-so cigar? And it's like, no. And they look at you like, what? And it's like, yeah, but have you had these 30 cigars? And they're like, no. And I'm like, exactly. I mean, there's so many cigars to get to all the time. It's challenging. But like you said, it's great for the industry, and there's a lot of good stuff out there. As we get down to, where are we at for time? Okay.
Hour mark.
Yeah, we're almost there, and we have a few minutes left. So before we wrap up, we want to finish up with the Sangre Nueva. So, I know you mentioned you have some other things that you're working on too. Are there going to be plans to expand the Sangre Nueva line in different varieties, or is this going to be kind of a blend that kind of sticks on its own, and you guys are going to do different projects moving forward?
This is going to be something that sticks on its own. We wanted to catch its own 2 feet. My father brought up a good point a little bit after PCA, saying if you had come out, let's say your first cigar ever, as a dud or a cigar that not a lot of individuals would have enjoyed, then the next project you come out with, you can't simply sit there and say, don't worry, guys, the first one might have been, crap, but the second one's going to be better. It's like that sort of thing.
Right.
The next projects are going to be a lot more traditional. Something that we've already been toying with for a good amount of time, one of which that we've been desperately trying to complete for the longest time. So I don't mind talking about that one, which is the Mandaria Oscuro. We wanted it initially with Mata Fina, but finding Brazilian tobacco these days, at least for us anyway, is fairly difficult. So we kind of have to, going back to it, reinventing the wheel. But we do want to give it a brother counterpart if we can, something on the darker tone and a lot more full-bodied, a little less spice. So the one following that is very much a tribute to my grandfather, and I can't speak too much about that guy just yet.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. A timeline on when we might hear about it, though? Is this something that might be coming out soon, or is this something that's down the road?
This is something that we're thinking about pitching down the road. The reason being is because we want necessarily for not only just for Sangre Nueva to catch its own 2 feet, but with next year's launch most likely at TPE, we want the Mandaria Oscuro to be obviously showcased if we can. And that's if time permits, and that's if we get the proper blend down pat. It's something that we've been working on now for about a year and a half. We're very, very peculiar with this particular blend. And it falls honestly down to me in trying to get it to be different yet somewhat similar in the sense where you'd find the Reserva series, let's say, which is a much more refined version of tobacco, but both at the very least carry an allure binder, right? One might be a Connecticut, Maduro, so forth. So I want to find that tie, but finding that tie has been very, very difficult in relation towards how a Habano Oscuro works in terms of wrapper, and in terms of what it provides and how overwhelming it is at times. So that's going to be launching out next year for sure. This other project that I can't speak too much of, it's most likely going to be launched 2 years down the line. We have our own personal reasons for that, so to speak, as well. But truth be told, only time will tell at this point.
Yeah, interesting. So you guys will be at TP again, and then I assume you guys will probably be back for PCA again next year. It was great to see you guys at PCA. It was nice. You kind of, the tone at PCA was kind of, you were up front, your dad was kind of taking the back seat for once and kind of letting you do your thing and really engaging with everyone and talking about the cigar and showing the cigar, and it was cool. Was it stressful at all? Was it, kind of like, all right, like this one's kind of on me now. I can't fuck this up.
Oh no, 100%. I was nerve-wracked as shit. But go figure. I do want to mention the utmost respect to my fellow manufacturers. Blending is not an easy process, let alone showcasing something brand new that you're hoping an entire populace of individuals, at least here in the States, are going to enjoy, let alone internationally, right? So that being said, there was very much a stress factor. The days you weren't there, you didn't catch it, but I was on the verge of fainting. Yeah, it was just one of those things. It hadn't really, it happens.
Not even from not even just from the partying.
Oh my God, please. It was just one of those things where you're 14 cigars deep and you're always active, right? I didn't even get the opportunity much to actually have lunch, which I don't mind at all. That's a part of doing trade shows and whatnot, just to be active, to be informative, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But it got to a point where I guess my the sugar that in my system just dropped. So I was like on the verge of passing out half the time and trying to keep my composure and stuff like that. And my father would catch wind of it, but we had a chat beforehand to which I told him, you know what, like really do leave this upon me. I want to leave my footprint as much as I can within this industry. And I think this is a great introduction for that. So all in all, as thrilled as I was, you can best believe your bottom dollar, I was stressed out of my mind.
I mean, I can imagine. It's a big deal, you know. I mean, and it's a lot to handle. But no, I mean, I passed by the booth and we talked a little bit at the trade show, and you seem to be doing a great job. It was good to see you guys again, and really exciting just to see your cigar on display, and it was really cool. I was excited for you, so just congratulations on that. Really, the cigar is great. We had a question one more time. I think we talked about this before the show, but the size, there's 4 sizes. What are those sizes?
So there's currently 3 sizes with Sangre Nueva. The first one is a very classical Robusto, a 4 3/4 by 50, which is the one, although it's unbanded, the one I'm smoking now. We also have your traditional Toro in a 6 by 52. And then the newest size, to which you're not going to find it in anything else we currently carry, is that 6 by 58 double perfecto. So those are the 3 sizes currently now for Sangre Nueva. Whether we expand or not, the Vitolas is another story. We might. I've been thinking of it. However, I don't have brains as of just yet to which what to add. Because if you were to try to do the Sangre Nueva, let's say in a Corona size, it smokes vastly different. Vastly different. So it's a lot of toying around with to find a different Vitola that we want to add into the line.
Sure.
So it might just be these 3 sizes going forward, and that's that.
Yeah, time will tell. We'll see what you guys come up with. It's always exciting. Before we go, we have one fun segment for you. Kind of take a break from the cigar talk before we wrap up the show. And that is our top 3 segment, brought to you by Room101 Cigars.
Watch the Smokin Tabacco show. Eat your vegetables, take your vitamins, smoke Room 101.
That's it. That's all
I
it
love
is.
that
awesome.
soundbite.
I love that. I love that.
That's
Like
amazing.
I was telling Brandon last week, I'm like, he didn't even make that for the show. He just happened to just say that
During an interview.
and I was like, we gotta steal that clip, and there it is. So
Yeah.
That's awesome.
there's just so many good sound bites from him that you can get. You know what I mean? Just let him talk for 20 minutes, and you can find enough sound clips to do a whole show. It really is. It's amazing. Now, I know that you did the zombie thing with Matt and Garrett on Monday night, I believe.
Yes.
So I have something that's kind of similar. I don't want to do the same thing because I don't want to steal it from them, but it's always about the top 3, right? Who are the 3? What are the 3? Where are the 3? So
Okay.
with all of the talk of nuclear weapon use that could be happening in the world, let's say there was a complete global nuclear apocalypse that happens, and you survive, and you now have to live post bomb dropping in this Fallout kind of world. If you've ever played the game Fallout, and for anyone that knows what that is, who are the 3 people that you'd want to start the new world with for survival, for whatever the reason may be? Who are the 3 people that like, this is how we're going to start the new civilization? Me and you 3 people.
Okay. Wow. Holy hell. That's a loaded question. I do want to choose one person from the industry, just because considering the post-apocalyptic world, and we're already living in it. Eric Espinosa. He, first and foremost, I mean, although being just a genuinely good friend, he's psychotic in his own right. So should there be any mutations or nothing like that, I know Eric is the first to to give the intimidation factor. I definitely want him on the team. I would say, holy crap, this is tough. I'd say, if anything else, Elon Musk. Which, although I'm not particularly, yeah, right. I'm not extremely and particularly fond of, or better said, I don't keep up with him as nearly as often as maybe I should. I don't really know. But that being said, he's a brain, and nobody can deny that.
It's
So
true.
in terms of resourcefulness, I feel as if he's a great candidate. Third, in all honesty, would most likely be my mother.
See, I thought you maybe
Um,
would have said your dad, but you picked your mom.
because my dad, I love my dad to death, but he's old school Cuban tradition. He's very much, oh, you caught the flu, tough it the hell out. It's either that or you die. You figure it out. And my mom is the one that's always, she's like, hey, it's been like 3 years since you visited the doctor. I think it's about time you go. And, she's always keeping me in check. She's very much the sideline of the Casa Cuevas operation and always making sure that me and my dad are doing all right. So I know she's got a good head on her shoulders. She's a great asset to the team, that's for sure.
So she's like the gel that keeps it all together at
Oh,
Casa
yeah.
Cuevas. Yeah, you gotta have that. You gotta have that.
You need to. Oh,
It's-
definitely.
You gotta have. I mean, I'm sure you and your dad. You just got so much going on. You get in your own headspaces. You need your mom to kind of get in there and be like, "You guys need to stop. You need to bring
Well,
it back.
it happens
settle
all the
down."
time. If it wasn't for my mom, I think my dad. I have this ongoing joke, and my dad fires me like 7 times within the year. But that's fine. I mean, we don't see eye to eye on a lot of things. So my mom is very much the attorney, so to speak, always going up to bat for me and whatnot, which is very nice.
And the mediator too. Has to probably mediate
Oh, yeah.
too and get in between. Yeah, it's and that and her job, while it may sound small, it's no easy task either. I mean, those are big shoes to fill. So no, that's just something different I wanted to do, something I wanted to play with. But no, that's gonna do it for the top three. So thank you for playing along with it. That was great. Very interesting choices too. But no, they're great. Good choices. Just interesting. But no, that's going to do it for the show this week, guys. Alec, thank you for being on the show. It was great to have you back, and it was great to talk to you. The cigar is great. I haven't had the other sizes. I look forward to trying the other sizes and seeing how it smokes. But this double perfecto is great. Fantastic cigar. So congrats on that, and good luck with all the other stuff that you're working on. And most likely we'll catch up with you at TP as well, and see what you guys bring to the show there. But anytime you want to come back, obviously you're welcome on the show. So thank you once again for being here. Before we sign off, is there anything that you wanted to add to the broadcast tonight? Anything you wanted to say?
Yes, please, if you haven't heard of Casa Cuevas, or if you want to be more informed in relation to what we do at our factory, or just in general want to reach out and ask a couple questions, you very much can at casacuevascigars.com to find the nearest retailer near you, as well as social media platforms as Facebook and as Instagram under Casa Cuevas Cigars. We are very diligent, and we're more than happy to answer any questions you guys might have.
Well said, well said. Yeah, check out Casa Cuevas Cigars. They make some great stuff. They've been around a long time, but they have some really cool stuff that they're working on right now, so definitely check them out. Guys, thank you for being here with us tonight. If you're watching with us, if you're listening to us later, thank you for being here with us later. And as always, no matter how you listen or watch the show, don't forget to like and subscribe. Social media, YouTube, and everywhere you can get your podcasts on all of the podcast apps. We will be back on Saturday for Spare Notes, although I don't think we're going to be live for Spare Notes on Saturday due to a scheduling issue with Coop. I think we actually may be doing the show much earlier in the day. I don't know if we're going to do it live or if we're going to record it and then just premiere it at its regular time. I'll have an update on that. It's kind of a last minute thing that kind of came up, but there will be a Spare Notes this weekend. I just don't know if it will be live. But it will be there, so don't forget to check that out. And we'll be back next Thursday, same time, same place. And while you're at it, head over to smokingtabacco.com for more news and updates from the cigar industry. And with that, we say good night, everyone. Take care.
Bye.